This is Tony from her Homestead Skills, and today I'm going to discuss electric vehicles and electric vehicle batteries. So apparently Canada has competed against the US and actually won the right to have a factory built in Ontario, in St. Thomas, Ontario, I believe, to produce electric batteries for Volkswagen. And my understanding, let's just see if I've got the numbers here. My understanding is that Volkswagen is going to invest $7 billion to put this plant up, and that the federal government is going to rebate them approximately $13 billion over 10 years. And once again, the gentleman who was touting this as a good thing gave a number of reasons for it. The first one, of course, was 3,000 jobs. And yes, we all know that jobs are always a good thing. You know, the more jobs that, the more people that are employed, the less issues all the way around. So jobs are never a bad thing. 3,000 jobs in Ontario is obviously a good thing. However, $13 billion in subsidies that are given back to Volkswagen over 10 years is an awful lot of money. And the way this person kept justifying it was that, no, the government is not cutting a check to Volkswagen for any amount of money, but that at the end of every year, when they do their taxes, they would be, their tax burden would be reduced by a certain amount, so that by the 10 years, they would have tax reductions of over $13 billion. It's a lot of money for a country like Canada. The population that Canada has, $13 billion is a lot of money. Anyway, he seemed to think it was a great idea. And of course, the other means of selling this idea to the radio host, which I didn't quite grasp, but he was doing it anyway, was that, and one of the other sales presentations that this person in the industry did make in order to sell this feature to the radio host was that the car batteries are worth $25,000 a piece, and yes, that's a figure that we've heard many times, and that the investment would be at $25,000 a piece, the investment would be recouped in 5 years. Now, that figure troubles me, simply because I know that prices are not stable in 5 years, especially, for 5 years straight, especially in this market. They can either go up or down depending on markets. And yeah, the batteries may cost $25,000 now, but what if nobody's buying them? Okay, supply and demand. It's a given that if there's too much supply and no demand, that the price of items go down, and that if there's more demand than there is supply, the price goes up. So at this point, the $25,000 per battery is because there isn't a lot of supply. And they could probably sell pretty much every electric vehicle that they build today. But that won't always be the case, especially with the way that they are pushing the production of electric vehicles. And if the touted manufacturing ability of 1 million batteries per year is a fact, it doesn't take long to build up a lot of supply. The other question, of course, was, at the end of this conversation, are there other car manufacturers that you're talking to? I mean, isn't a number of, this is only one manufacturer, aren't they all producing batteries? for their vehicles. And the gentleman, very pleased to suggest that, yes, he's already talking to another 3 of them. So we've got one plant that is going up because we've won that business. He's talking to another 3 car companies currently to develop plants to produce these batteries for cars that nobody wants. Today, there is not the infrastructure to support these vehicles, and there's a possibility that at some point the grid that produces electricity will catch up with the demand for electric vehicles, and that you will eventually be able to charge an electric vehicle as quickly as you can fill up a tank of gas today. I don't see it. I don't see that that technology exists yet. I don't see that we can produce enough electricity to charge probably the ones we have now, and that we have brownouts in the summer from air conditioning units, never mind electric cars. So what's it going to be? A choice between having your air conditioning work or your car charged? And that's also a question. And what are they going to do to improve the production of electricity? I mean, that has to be first and foremost a consideration that is being ignored. So, okay, eventually all that technology will catch up with each other. It's not there today. And the old adage of if you build it, they will come is not always true. There have been a lot of products that nobody has bought. And unfortunately, a lot of those, what they're trying to push on you today is a very expensive item that if nobody buys is going to be a horrendous loss to a lot of countries, not just one. So we'll see what happens. I'm not enthusiastic. I'm one of those people that are definitely on the sidelines on this deal. There's so much that has to happen before anything like this is viable. Certainly, the government demanding that people buy these cars is laughable. You know, I used to work in the computer industry, and I was well aware of the fact that when software was developed, when a new iteration of software came out, that they did their best to find all the associated problems with that package before it was sold to the public. But when you have 25, 30, 40, whatever the number was, people test the product to find problems in specific environments, you're going to find so many problems and you'll be able to fix those ahead of time. But when you have thousands and hundreds of thousands of people buying that item and using it, and the environments are all minutely different one from the other, you're going to find hundreds more problems. And that is why software companies produced updates to a version of software that they had put out, and that was to fix problems that were known as they came about. And that's fine when you're dealing with a package that is worth a few $100s. But when you're dealing with technology that is worth $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, I mean, how much does an electric car cost, and how cheap will it get? And who's going to pay the price when things go south? Okay, well, just a few thoughts. I don't think that we're quite ready for this market. I think that it is being pushed on a public that has no desire for it, and that there probably will be repercussions to that, but we'll see what happens. I could be completely wrong. The grid, the ability to produce electricity may catch up with the production of these cars, but although we do hear of plants being produced to produce vehicles, to produce batteries, we don't really hear too much about how to improve the grid, how to produce more electricity. I haven't heard anything about that. I've heard of charging stations for these cars, but I have not heard how our countries are going to produce more electricity. It will happen. How and when and who's going to take that on? I hear nothing about that. So when we do, and when we can say that yes, this is a viable solution, and yes, it can become cost effective because we're mass producing it, we'll see what happens. But today, it is what we call bleeding edge technology, and it's not for the faint of heart, not at those prices. So good luck to you. If you're interested in these vehicles, and hopefully you live in a big city where there are charging stations, or you're wealthy enough to be able to put one in your home. Oh, and the other little thing that I did research was how they would implement charging stations in apartment buildings. Like, how many people live in condos and apartment buildings? Hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands. So all these people, if they all owned electric cars, how would they all charge them? They'd have to have each a charger in their own parking spot. Okay, so there are companies that are putting charging stations in apartment buildings, and I don't know what the ratio is that they're doing right now. But the unnerving part of that was the thought that there was a statement by this one firm that said that they would be using AI to determine usage, individual usage, and they would be charging that accordingly so that those that need more would get more, and those that did not use their car as much would not. And I'm sorry, when you leave it up to a computer to decide if you can drive your car or not, that's also very unnerving. Anyway, just my 2 cents. I'm not really thrilled with these concepts, but I'm an old person. Maybe the young people really like that. We'll see what happens. Anyway, this is Tony from Her Homestead Skills, trying to adapt to a new way of life. Have a good day.